Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast, where change is not just embraced, it's celebrated. I'm Carissa Andrews, international best-selling author, indie author coach, and your navigator through the ever-evolving landscape of authorship. Are you ready to harness the power of your mind and the latest innovations in technology for your writing journey? If you're passionate about manifesting your dreams and pioneering new writing frontiers, then you're in the perfect place. Here, we merge the mystical woo of writing with the exciting advancements of the modern world. We dive into the realms of mindset, manifestation, and the transformative magic that occurs when you believe in the impossible. We also venture into the world of futuristic technologies and strategies, preparing you for the next chapter in your author career. Every week, we explore new ways to revolutionize your writing and publishing experience. From AI to breakthrough thinking, this podcast is your gateway to a world where creativity meets innovation. Whether you're penning your first novel or expanding your literary empire, whether you're a devotee of the pen or a digital storyteller, this podcast is where your author revolution gains momentum. So join me in this journey to continue growth and transformation. It's time to redefine what it means to be an author in today's dynamic world. This is the Author Revolution podcast, and your author revolution starts now. Hi guys, welcome to the Author Revolution podcast. So this week, I have a couple of announcements I want to make before we get into this week's podcast interview. The first being, hopefully everything is going good. You are listening to this podcast episode on all the platforms you have been familiar with and know about and all the things. I had a weird situation happen where my podcast platform decided to up and quit on me. And so I have been in the process of trying to figure out like who I want to go with. Do I want to have the podcast through Kajabi, or do I want to choose a different podcast distributor? In the end, I decided to go with Buzzsprout. So I'm hoping, this is my first podcast episode that's going out. I'm hoping obviously that everything is going perfectly, that you're hearing this on your typical platforms. And so it would really mean a lot to me if you are hearing this, if everything's going well, if you can just email me and let me know that, hey, yep, everything's still looking good. I'm getting this podcast in the same way as normal. Hallelujah, all things are good. So you can email me at carissa@authorrevolution.org and just let me know. Let me know it's good. Okay, so with that underway, this podcast episode I'm really excited to share with you because it's an interview with Joey Drolshagen. And what's really cool about Joey is he is law of attraction on steroids, like manifestation guru. He helps businesses to create the revenue that they're looking for, but he does it with a method that is so wonderful. It's called the SMT Method. And I'm going to let Joey go into what this means, what it stands for, all the things. But let me just tell you a little bit about Joey. So Joey has carved his own path in the coaching world. He's been a been there, done that kind of person when it comes to career transitions. And what ended up happening is in his 28 years of experience in corporate and knowing how it feels to want out, he paved the way for others in the same position to step past their fears and hangups and then step into entrepreneurship within months and quickly scale over six figures, replacing current incomes. After decades of studying and implementing and developing, the SMT method was formed. He now helps individuals break down the blocks that have been holding them hostage and align with their deepest desires to easily create lives of purpose, lived with passion and fulfillment through shifting and reprogramming the subconscious mind. And Joey, I got to tell you, he's just the most joyful person to speak to. When we were talking about, moving past fears and blocks and kind of being stuck in the same modalities, it really got me thinking about my own career, my own mindsets, my own things that I still hang up about myself as well. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it at the end of this podcast episode because there was so much that we dive into that I want to get to it. But just know that there's more that I'm going to be kind of giving you, some information I'm going to be giving you about what's been going on in my life lately and how this impacted me so much and really just profoundly made me stop to think and shift and recreate what I want my life to look like. So without further ado, let's get into the podcast episode and listen to Joey. Well, hi, Joey. Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast. I'm really excited to have a discussion with you today. But before we get started, would you tell my audience just a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely, Chris. And I'm really like excited to be here with you. The conversation we had ahead of time, it's like, man, we're like this, you and I, there's
Right?
just an alignment. So yeah, and what I do is I gear everything I do. Everything I do is personal transformation, really, but I do it in a style related to business owners, professional salespeople, and entrepreneurs to quickly get out of their own way through dealing with the subconscious conditioning and really achieve unrealistic results in their business growth and do so in a way that opens up more freedom of time as well.
I love that. So what got you
And I
into
love
that?
what I do.
What got you into that? Like, what was the idea there?
I was a student of, like, I was a guinea pig of all the works I do today because I came up and in my 20s, if something came easy for me, I thought I didn't earn it. And I didn't work hard enough for it. So I didn't deserve it. And shifting all that, shifting my money paradigm, shifting where I thought I could get to in my life. Like, I'm a kid that grew up in Detroit, Michigan, in a very low income blue collar family. And the fact that I made it to a first child in my family with a college degree, I made it into white collar work, and I made it up to a vice president of sales and helping organizations in bankruptcy get back to profitability, and even into what I'm doing now with the coaching and consulting and all that. It's not realistic that I would be here talking to you right now, but I am.
I love that. I love the unrealistic goal setter idea. That mentality is so cool to me because so many of
Yeah,
us, especially, so I teach indie authors, and indie authors, there's this undercurrent of like that poverty mentality, or like their writing isn't going to earn them anything, or it's not worthy of earning them anything. And so I'm constantly trying to help rework that subconscious programming so that we can get back to a place where, no, we can get paid for our work and our creativity, you know?
absolutely. And that's one of the reasons, I tried coaching after coaching after coaching, and I'd walk away thinking, man, there must be something wrong with me because I didn't get anything out of it. So when I developed the SMT method, which I'm sure we'll get into, it's all about laying out a pathway. It doesn't give you A, B, and C that everybody does in one size fit all to get to D. It lays out a pathway for a unique transformation along the flow. So when if you were to go through it and somebody else goes through it, it's going to be unique to you and your desires and your visions. It's going to be unique to you and that conditioning that's within you. And I grew up with four siblings. And even now, Carissa, when we talk about a story that happened when we were kids, we have five different stories of that because
Isn't
we
that
all have
crazy?
our own conditioning. So we perceive things through our conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so important to look at things from different perspectives because there are so many. Authors, I think we have it a little bit easier because of like, especially fiction authors, we're already kind of doing that anyway when we're creating characters and we're creating stories based off of other characters that are not ourselves, hypothetically, not ourselves, maybe
Yeah.
aspects of ourselves. But in some ways, there's so many people out there who get so locked into their modalities and their thinking that it's hard for them to envision anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've worked with artists, I've worked with musicians, I've worked with you, and it's actually easier doing that at some point. At the beginning, it's easier doing that than it is somebody coming out of corporate America because they're already into that creative flow. That's real entrepreneurship. In
Yeah.
corporate America, you learn to do this and you learn to do this and you learn to do that. Even leadership, which I've led, for 2 years, an 8 month leadership down where I live for the local government and stuff for business owners. And even leadership, it's taught that you do this and you do this and you do this, and that's called leadership. But when we look at the great leaders of all times, they're people that went against the patterns and everything, and they did what they thought was right that led to this unrealistic outcome, winning a
Right.
war. You know what I mean? Like things that have been achieved through doing that are not things that you do A, B, and C. And I keep hammering on that because we're so conditioned, even from our early years in math class, when you and I are working in math class and we have to solve the problem using the exact same steps and everything else. But if you have an easier way of getting there and you have the right answer at the end, and that should be like celebrated that you're able to think the way you think to get to there, but it's not. Instead,
Right.
we get it wrong or points taken off because of it, and it teaches us to live in this robotic conditioning that one size fit all, and you do A, B, and C to get to D, and it's just not a way you're going to really grow your business to unrealistic results. Anyone, not you.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And that's so true. I even think of my daughter. She has always been in like accelerated math. And if she can get to the answer very quickly. And if she doesn't follow the steps and write it all out. Then she gets points docked and she's like, but the answer was right. So I completely agree with you there. It's like,
Yeah. Yes.
it's so frustrating the way that society has put us into these boxes and tried to make it seem as though the creative mindset isn't valid, or that it can't be valid.
Right.
It's wild.
And you get into corporate America, and like the whole thing is to shut that down.
Oh
You do
yeah.
your 90-day goals, your 6 month goals, your 1 year goal, 3 year goal, 5 year goal, and things like that. And then you come up with your plan A and plan B, and then you come up with what's your recovery. What if this happens? What are you going to do? And it's all done through here, which is our logical mind, which is such a limited air way to open up creativity. When you look at musicians and you look at artists, they have that creative flow that they're
Mm,
in. And
yep.
when I work with entrepreneurs, it's about getting into, or business owners or even professional salespeople, it's about getting into that flow where all of a sudden things start that we desire start showing up easily. And we're not working exhaustively to try to make them happen anymore.
Right, right. Abraham Hicks calls that efforting. Like we're trying to effort all the time. Yeah. And that
I went
it
and
doesn't
saw her
earn us
one
much.
time
Did you?
in not Charlotte, but somewhere in Carolinas. And I got called up in the hot seat.
Yeah. How awesome is
Yeah, it was
that?
awesome. It was
Super
awesome.
cool. I love
Yeah.
Abraham Hicks. I love Esther too,
Yeah.
obviously. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask though, like you had this VP in sales going on, but now you've transitioned to coach and author. Like what inspired that change? Was there like something specific that triggered that shift over?
When I was 22 years old, I knew I didn't want to go into to what like the blue collar that my family was in. I didn't want to go into white collar. I didn't want to go into corporate. I wanted to just be open. I wanted to inspire, motivate, and lead millions of people to live better lives. And at that time, Carissa, I didn't know how to do that for myself. I told you I was struggling. So I became
Right.
I thought I would end up being a minister or a pastor someplace. And I am an ordained minister. I don't lead a church because I don't like the politics, but I enjoy doing guest services and things like that and
Right.
speaking and working with people and individuals and groups. But yeah, so then as I went through and I was just a continuous student, multiple programs, multiple, self-study books, programs, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year long and everything else and stuff. And I kept struggling, not getting much results until I understood the conscious mind and how the conscious mind is what triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So if we have in our conscious is our habits, our paradigms, patterns, our belief system, all that's in the subconscious. And so if we don't do something to change that, we can never break outside of that. It's never outside situations.
Right.
I'll talk to realtors and they'll say, well, there's not enough inventory, there's too much competition, there's unreasonable sellers, this and that and stuff. There's people out there who are like killing it in the same economy where this person is struggling.
Right.
So it's not about that. It's about our inside conditioning. And then I was in corporate, like I said, vice president. I helped multiple organizations in bankruptcy to get back to profitability. And the last one I was at, my dad passed away. This is about 14 years ago. I already had a couple certifications in what I do, but my dad passed away. And a year later, my mom just didn't want to be alive without him. And she passed away in natural causes. And I found myself an orphan,
Right.
and I'm still doing this corporate thing. I'm still going to this place I don't want to go to. I'm still, and I just got to a point, the last place we got new owners to come in and, dump $12 million or something into the organization and instantly took them from a 3 day to a 5 week. And I said, I'm done. I'm done. I had already been speaking and stuff like that. I had a couple clients I had worked with and I just resigned and I moved down here in the mountains of South Carolina and I've been building ever since. And it just launched and took off. And then COVID hit and it dropped back down. And now I'm in that, launching it back up again and stuff. And I struggle sometimes. We all do with that, some of that conditioning,
Mm,
because we get it quieted down, we get it changed over, we start following that. And then at some point, something will happen like COVID. And all of a sudden, I'll have 16 scheduled events that'll canceled in like a matter of a day and a half. And it's
right.
like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got to figure this out. And I went right back to my logical mind because
Yeah.
that's, how I've been conditioned. And I'm trying to figure it out. And it's hard. And I'm taking massive actions, working exhaustive hours and everything. And then I got another coach and started working with them. And he helped me get that alignment again. So this is funny. He would have me leave my office, leave my business, and go out to Chattanooga, Tennessee, hang gliding, because that's a hobby of mine.
Okay.
And I'd go out there for like 4 or 5 days. And while I'm out there, I'm setting up the glider, putting it together, getting ready for another launch. And I'd get a phone call with somebody out of the blue. They heard a podcast a year and a half that was a year and a half old, or something happened. And all of a sudden, things happened out of the blue. And then when I came back from there, I had a couple calls and who became clients. And then I love playing pickleball. I, I
Okay.
I I can't get enough pickleball. I was playing 12 to 15 hours a week of pickleball and doing
Wow.
tournaments and things like that. And what it did is it kept me out of here to keep me out of my logical mind of how I'm going to fix this business. And it kept me out there. And I came in and did the things I had to do, but I didn't sit here and try for my logical mind figure it all out. Within a month and a half, I went from 2 to 12 clients.
Wow. That's amazing.
All of it just flowed, referrals, or
Yeah.
somebody I had worked with who came back. It just like boom, 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 and it started lining up. And today, that's how I live. I do what I have to do. If I get a spark of an idea, then I'll follow that. But I don't sit here any longer and try to figure out from my logical mind how to make my business better, stronger, more impactful, whatever it may be.
Right. I teach that often where the how is not our responsibility. That's like the step two in
Yes,
manifestation. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you
beautiful.
decide, you lock in the vibe,
Yes.
trust it's yours, and then you take the inspired action when it arrives. So manifestation for me is really a big thing. And I love that the how is not our responsibility in some ways because I'm a double Virgo. And so for me, understanding the how was like a superpower in some ways. Like I can see strategically, like we were talking before the show, and when I realized that that's not my responsibility, that the how will show up, it was like such a profound like wake up moment where I'm like, that would be such a relief that that's not my responsibility.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it just lightens everything up.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I traveled 3 to 5 thousand miles week after week after week for years. I missed my only son's first birthday because I was traveling, trying to, thinking I was doing the right thing by building my sales territory,
Yeah.
and got minimal results. When I learned this stuff, started applying this stuff, I took a $50 million organization with one sale of $25 million a year to a $75 million
Wow.
corporation. And it was easy and it was fun.
Right. I think that's the key
And
too. Fun, having fun with
yeah.
it.
Yes. So I've had clients who've gone from like $7.5 million in revenue for their highest year within 12 calendar months, almost toppled $23 million.
Wow. That is so cool.
And the only year of their adult life that they took 5 weeks of vacation in the year that they experienced that growth. I mean, and I have story after story after story of success stories of people I've worked with. But when people hear this, a lot of times they'll go, well, that's BS. That's unrealistic. It's BS. And
Yeah.
I used to think like that too. And it
Yeah.
kept me into not experiencing unrealistic results. And
Right.
what we want is we want our life to be incredible with what we do. We want to be super successful at what we do. We want unrealistic results. But in our subconscious conditioning is that limit that says, well, that's unrealistic. So you can't expect you're going to achieve that.
Right.
But,
What do you
but
think is like the biggest limiting belief that crops up then? Like if with all the people that you've worked with, when it comes to that, when they're doing all the things from the outside, like if someone did an audit of their business, it's looking like they're doing all the things right, but they're not seeing the growth that they want. What do you think's going on there?
typically it's some kind of a conditioning. A lot of business owners I work with, one of the things that's common across, maybe not 100%, but pretty much across the board is, as a business owner, you want to spend a majority of your time working on the business. And so many business owners I talk to talk about wearing so many hats and everything else, and they're spending all their time working in the business
Yeah.
and just a little bit of time working on the business.
Mm.
And it's coming from and I'll tell you, we talked about it, but the logical mind, I call it my antichrist. And the reason I do that, Chris, is because I can't be living through the antichrist here to control
Yeah.
my life and figure it all out, the house and everything else, and my recovery plans and everything, and still be connected with coincidences, with what I call a higher power, which for me is God, with universal, with anything, whatever that is. I can't be connected with both. I have to, and I get to choose one or the other. So the
Right.
reason the pickleball, the reason the things like that is it gets me out of living from here and opens me up to be in that flow.
Right.
And when we're in that flow, so many people are worried about being lazy. I had a guy I was talking to, and because I talk about, you got to lean into what feels good. And he goes, well, it would feel good to sit on the couch for a week and eat chips. And I go,
Then do
okay,
that.
Tuesday. He goes, well, I can't do it for a week. I go, do it for a weekend. You get out of work Friday, get on the couch, grab as many chips as you want, like go there, and Saturday, and then do it again on Sunday and just see what happens. And by Saturday midday, he was bored.
Right.
And that's what'll happen because we have a drive, we have a spirit. And when we allow that to come to life, it's not going to allow us to be lazy. It's not going to allow us to pull away. It's not going to allow us to not have that impact or that purpose, what we're here to achieve and what we desire to achieve. So when
Right.
we lean into that a little bit, my pickleball is tapered down because my business is where it's at and stuff. And I'm getting ready to launch an institute to certify other coaches now in the SMT method. I'm hiring
Okay.
coaches to come on and cover some of the overflow from the clients that you serve with the SMT method and such. So this morning I got up early. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning because I'm doing my own landscape and I enjoy doing that. And so
Yeah.
I went outside and put five, 5 out of 6 plants, that I planted and stuff like that. And it's phase 2. And it's so, and I do that and it just charges me up. And then when I do that, when I allow for some downtime, which so many business, even authors, so many business owners, authors, professional sales, whatever it is that they're afraid to take that because they're not being productive.
Right.
But sometimes that's the most productive time you can spend because that ignites that creativity. That's why I love windshield time.
Yeah. 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 Because you got nowhere else to be. So you may as well start thinking, start
And it
enjoying
doesn't
and
take all your capability. You know what I finally figured out is I have to like my mind's got to help me to steer the vehicle, keep it in the lane, keep the speed, whether I got cruise on or not. Things like that, turn signals and all that stuff. But it's not fully engaged, so then I can open it up to be creative and just allow creative thoughts to come to me. And I'll tell you, even in sales, after I learned this stuff, that $25 million contract I told you about, but many more, I would just be driving, and I would just get a thought of somebody. And I go, oh my God, I never checked back with him. And I'd call the person up. And there's multiple times I would hear something like, oh my God, I forgot I got your quote and I'm getting ready to place that today. Or I don't see your quote here. I'm getting ready to place it. So can you send it over to me real quick? Like every one of those times when that's happened, it's led to me receiving that order.
isn't that great? It's like,
Yeah, because that would not have been on my exhaustive to-do list of something to do.
yeah, because when you're so busy with momentum of thought, all of the different things that you're working on, all the things you think you have to do, like you said, there's not that visionary time, almost that expansive openness to receiving whatever's coming or trying to come through. Because sometimes I think it's still trying to come through even when you're ignoring it.
Yes.
But then
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you're open to it. Yeah, that's so good.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that happens to all of us. That's where some of these great ideas come from. I've been stuck in my writing and I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But my daughter's over here like, hey, let's go watch a show. And it's like, okay, you go watch a
Yeah.
show. And then all of a sudden the idea pops in your head halfway through the show. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Another thing that works well, because I do quite a bit of writing. I've published 2 books so far, and I'm writing another one for the SMT, working on another one for the SMT method. But one of the things I found that works for me is when I ever get stuck, I'll call a client, I'll call another coach, I'll call some business, someplace, somebody I know, and I'll talk to them and I'll find out how I can help them in that area.
Okay.
And every single time I do that, Carissa, it opens me back up.
Oh, how good is that? What a cool way
Yeah.
to do it. Instead of
Hmm.
you working on yourself and getting yourself probably more stuck, it's
I
now,
get out of myself.
yeah, 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 yeah. So smart. Okay, so I think at this point we need to talk about the SMT method. What is it? Can
Yes.
you explain it for my audience?
Yes. The SMT method stands for subconscious mindset training.
Love that.
And I'll explain it really quick. We have a conscious mind, and our conscious mind is our knowing. It's where we know what we want. But in our conscious mind, it's the words we use, the thoughts we entertain, the people we talk to, the books we read, what we watch on TV. All of that's in our conscious mind, and we have control over it. And then we have a subconscious mind, and all of our subconscious mind does is absorbs whatever's in the conscious mind. Within the subconscious mind, there's what I call this motherboard of all of our programming, our experiences, our habits, our patterns, our beliefs, all of that's in there. In fact, Carissa, we don't even have to experience something to have it embedded within our
Hmm.
subconscious memory. If somebody can tell it to us over, and we absorb that as being absolute truth. And so
Right.
but the subconscious mind is what triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or we don't take. So that's why there's that gap, that disconnect between we know what we want, but we're not able to take those actions to get us there. And what the
Right.
subconscious mindset training is built on is that it helps identify what that conditioning is and then quickly shift that. So it opens up the door for more of that knowing to be aligned with the actions we're taking and bring about the results that we want.
That's so
So it's
good.
that literally removing that gap between the conscious and subconscious mind, which brings total mindset alignment.
Right. I think that's so powerful too. In my manifestation courses, and I have a membership called Your Future Self. So it's myself and then my friend who is a board certified clinical hypnotherapist. So we have either hypnoses or we have meditations, literally trying to help authors shift their mindset out of whatever limiting beliefs they seem to be having around whatever in their author career. I mean, at this point, I think we have like 120 together
Nice.
between the two of us. But I think it's so powerful because so many people don't realize how much that subconscious aspect of their mind is running the show. And even, I mean, and no one is like immune to it. You think you can cover it up and you're like, yes, I finally broke through it. And it'll rear its ugly head again at just a different level. And you're like, this again? I have to go through this again? What?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one of the business owners I worked with has a wholesale company in Ohio. And he came to me and he was doing $30,000. He was doing $300,000 a year.
Okay.
And he had a line of credit he was relying on to cover the gap between his costs and his revenue. And all he wanted to do was get to $500,000 a year because he could start nickel and diming down that line of credit. In the 12 months that we worked together, his business went from 300,000 to $3 million.
Holy cow.
And and with what you were just saying, that was a few years ago, and he's maintained that. The person that hit almost 23, they've been maintaining that for 5 or 6 years now, and kind of adjusting upward a little bit, but not huge stride like that. So this gentleman's at $3 million. He comes back to me last October, and he said, "Man, I'm really frustrated." And I go, "Why? What's going on?" He said, I want to get to 5 million. There's something blocking me. I just can't do it, and that's to what you were talking about, another level of the onion, right? And I laughed at first, what he did too, when I explained, because I go, so you only want to get to 500,000, you're at 3 million, and you're frustrated, you can't get to 5 million. And he started laughing, but that's the human condition right there, right? Once we
Yeah.
achieve a mountaintop, we want a higher mountaintop. That's great because it keeps us in drive and things like that. So now we're working to go to that $5 million number, and he's
So
on his
good.
way.
That's so good. Yeah, and it's so crazy how we can trip ourselves up, but as soon as you can look at it and kind of laugh at it and go, oh, this is the same devil, really, honestly. It's like I just need to like shift it again and start working on the shift. Then all of a
Yes.
sudden things can be shifted.
No, and it kind of fits in with SMT, but you had asked me earlier, we talked about the commonalities. And another commonality with most clients I work with is I have to get them to slow down.
Mm,
You
add more
know,
space.
um, our intuition, like things like that, the universe speaking, God, whatever you want to call that, it's only as loud as our willingness to listen. So if
Right.
we're doing 150 miles an hour, we're passing by all these opportunities to allow it to show up with ease, and we don't even see them, we don't even recognize them. And so
Right.
then what happens is things aren't working. So what do we do? Is people will tend to work harder, and I have to get them to slow down a little bit to
Yeah.
get into that
Yeah.
alignment place.
That is so smart. Like I think about the indie author industry and like we kind of went because it's such a new industry. People thought that, okay, the people who are really killing it in the marketplace, it's those people who are rapid releases. They're putting out a book a month. They're doing all the things. They're just one book after another. It's crazy. And then so many of us are going, why is it not working for us? And it's like, because it's like 1% of the population where that feels good to them and it actually is in alignment with them and how they work. The rest of us are like, we need a little more to absorb and think and process and play around with ideas and, do all the things. It's just, and I think you're so right because like when I first started my businesses, whether it be the author side or whether it be Author Revolution, it was like if it wasn't working, it was like a dog with a bone. I need to figure out why not. Why not? Why isn't this working? I'm a smart person. I know how things go. I got A's in school. Like, you know what I mean? But it's so crazy how like real life goes. But in order to get ahead, you kind of have to chill out and listen to that higher part of yourself.
With what? Yes, absolutely. This is great because what you just talked about, is the other thing where within the SMT and every client I work with is, you've heard the terms, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Which means whatever squeaking, whatever problem there is what where gets our attention. It gets our focus, right? And then the thought is, okay, I'll fix this and everything will be going fine. But what happens is then there's another squeaky wheel, another squeaky wheel, another squeaky wheel, and it goes on and on and on and on. And I have seen
Yeah.
organizations, you know, $175 million organizations go into bankruptcy following those squeaky wheels.
Oh,
And the last organization I work with, and every client I work with today is the same way. I would go into these meetings 5 days a week for senior management and stuff, and we'd sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you just hear problem after problem after problem. And every single day for over a month, I'd say, man, can we talk about something that's going well? We
right.
so often pass over our successes. We so often minimize our successes, where when we focus on the success, and so, in other words, what I do with my clients is I help them have the squeaky wheels be their successes. Because when
Mm.
we focus on that, and in the organization that I did this with, is we went finally, one guy that works on smaller parts said, okay, almost out of frustration, like, okay, fine, Joe, and he said, we had this problem and we had like a 36% scrap rate, whatever it was, I don't remember the number. And we made this change. And now we're down to a scrap rate in the teens. Well, he said that, and the guy on the other side of the room that handles the big part said, wait a minute, what's the problem? And he told him, he goes, we're having the same problem. He goes, well, here's what we did. So not even like maybe 4 days later, the guy with the big parts comes in. He goes, oh my God, we took our scrap rate down into single digits applying that change. And then all of a sudden, people would like look at me like, are you a magician? Like, what's going on here? And we got lined up in that. And do you know, within a 2.5 months, 3 months from there, we had new owners come in, drop $12 million in operations and take them from a 3 day a month to a 5 day a week operation.
Wow.
And my
Wow.
clients, when we start focusing on what's going good, when we start celebrating those successes, which is part of
Mhm.
every coaching call I do, whether it's individual or group, we
Yep.
get into celebrating those. We open up and get into alignment with more successes. When
Yeah.
we get into when the squeaky wheel is the problems of our life, and we get into that, we just see more problems and more problems and more problems.
Right. Because you're always looking for evidence of the thing that you're focusing on. So like Abraham Hicks talks about the stick, right? The desire stick. You're either focusing on what you want or the absence of it. And so which end of the same stick do you really want to be focusing on? Because now that's the evidence that's going to be coming into your awareness.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, it's so important
Yeah.
to be aligning yourself with those successes. And I like high achievers, especially. There's a lot of authors who are high achievers, especially those who can write and publish quickly. And they don't stop to celebrate that they just published a book, that they just got another one done, or like anything, that they got more reviews today. Like it doesn't matter. They're just like, but it wasn't enough. Well, then how can you see the successes when they do come if you're not
Yeah.
looking at the little successes racking up right now?
Right, right. And it just builds upon them, and that's, like I
Yeah.
said, that's one of the things that's different about, like, I've learned through a lot of coaching I've gone through is I have your roadmap to success. We have your pathway to success. And you don't even know me. You don't know what I do or how I do it. How can you know you have my pathway is one of the things I question now. But also with that is they have an A, B, C plan. Everybody that goes through that does A, B, and C, and they're supposed to get to D. But what happens is less than 1% of people following those programs ever achieves anywhere near what the person who built it did.
Mm,
And so that's why the SMT method is built with a pathway that creates a unique journey for each individual that goes through it. But when you get done with it, you have your roadmap. You can apply that to any other endeavor, business, whatever it is, and you already know what that is for you. It won't work for somebody else, but it
yeah,
will work for you in bringing about the same results you experience, as you're going through the program.
that's so good. So let's
Yeah.
talk about your books too, because you're obviously aligning all of your writing to go along with this as well. So you've got a book called Align, Manifest, Transform, and in it you're bringing individuals into alignment. Love that word, love that terminology, all the things. What is the process for helping someone then identify what they truly want to achieve, and like particularly in this creative field? Like how do they get to that point of understanding what they really want? And I'm assuming that's the thing that also kind of blocks them if they don't recognize what they really want.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Okay.
And do you remember I said the SMT method is about identifying that conditioning causing limitation? And then we
Mhm.
can shift that quickly and start opening up that doorway. So every individual organization I work with, sales teams, whatever it may be, real estate offices, whatever. It's developing what I call a dynamic vision. And it has a road mapping tools in it to go through. And again, to create that unique experience. And like I said, that gentleman that went from 300,000 to $3 million, all he wanted to do was get to $500,000, and I couldn't get him to believe beyond that. So I
Yeah.
work with the clients, and we get that expanded some, because I know it's the desire is in us. We just so often cover it up and push it down so far that because it doesn't make logical sense. It's not realistic what we truly want. So
Yeah.
within the road mapping tools helps tap into that and bring it out. So he got to $700,000, and at that he was still excited for it, but he also had no idea how the heck that he could do that. And that's where I like to get people, where you're excited, you can almost see it there, but you don't know how you're going to do it.
Yep.
And we use that. And then as we hit 500,000, so quickly, he's going, man, we can up that. And you up it to 1 million and end up, and then to the three and stuff. And it's how it happens. And same with the person who went from 7.5 to $23 million. And continuously within the 1,000 clients I've served over the past decade, it's been like that. So in developing that vision, right away, we start tapping into that conditioning. When I do a workshop, I have people put their hands up, and I'll say, tell me when it's outside of your realm of imagination, what you can see for yourself. And I'll say a revenue of $100,000 every year. People keep their hand up. I'll say 250, maybe one or two hands will come down. I'll say 500,000, and by the time I hit like multiple millions, there's no hands left up there. And what I tell people, that's your limit right there. So I
Yeah.
go through those. Part of the whole thing with developing the vision is going through those exercises to find out where is that limit. And then we start talking about that and building what would it look like if that. And as we do that, it starts building where they start seeing it more now, and that
Right.
helps expand that. And then everything else in the SMT method is dealing with a lot of different avenues. Like I said, the slowing down, a lot of things we're talking about and more. But it's really at its core is traversing the gap from where someone is now to where they want to be.
Right.
And as they follow the pathway, it starts bumping against that conditioning again. So we can be aware of it, we can shift it and open up the doorway. And so if you think about it, where a lot of things are like trudgery and things like that, this is exciting because as you identify, you're going to shift it and more your vision is open up. You see results very quickly in the changes happening and stuff in your life,
Yeah.
and not just your business. But that's why I say it's all about personal transformation, but it's aimed at rapid business growth.
Right. That's so good. I think that's part of the reason why I have a couple of coaching programs that are called Millionaire Author. And the only reason I named them that was because I was seeing authors like thinking that word millionaire was so out of reach that it would never happen to them. And so it was about like kind of throwing it in their face a little bit and going, but can it be this way? Can you actually get to this? Yes, you can. So it's just, it's that tweak, that mindset shift, because you're right. So many people, and it doesn't matter if they're authors or not, are so stuck in what they think they get to have. It's wild.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can work with within the SMT method, I've worked with people who have a job and they just can't stand it and they want a better job and they've gotten that, or people who are in a job and maybe have started a business, maybe haven't yet, but they kind of, they don't even know sometimes what they want to do, but they just know they can't stand the corporate world or whatever, all the
Right.
way up to people who have been in business for, like I said, 13, 18, 20 years and things like that. And I can help them to get into alignment start with that vision and build that business all the way. And then I can help as well with a consulting side to job benchmarking and bringing in ideal clients. Because as soon as you build the business, the next thing is you need a team. So I can help do that and really take somebody from being miserable in their job all the way to having a sellable organization. I don't do the sales, but all the way, built through that pattern, all the way to do that.
That
And
is so
it's
good.
just incredible to see. I'm so blessed that I get to be a part and see this with people. And
Right.
all I have to do, Carissa, is the most fulfillment I get in my life is I just get to live with a servant's heart and I get to help people achieve what they want to achieve.
Right. Well, and seeing that transformation too. I love that transformation effect of seeing things go from like good to great, like to really
Yeah.
exciting and like just like
Yeah.
amazing. That's always been
Yeah.
something like even when I was in school or if I was drawing or like writing a book, it didn't matter what it was. It was like I always loved to see the transformation for myself. But then when you could start helping others achieve those results as well, it's almost more
Yes.
addicting in a way because it's like, oh, Isn't this awesome? Like,
Seems bigger than it. Yeah, it seems
yeah.
bigger than that, and then some of the things that happen is like I just found out for the fourth year in a row, I've been nominated as one of the top 20 or 25 business coaches in the United States within the New York Journal. And then this year they called me and said, because they sent me a thing saying you've been selected, you're one of the top 20, and which is awesome because it's all based on the impact that I'm having in people's lives. So it's not
Right.
a personal look at me thing. It's like this is the SMT works. The method works, and
Yeah.
this year they called me up from a conference room and they said, hey, we just want to let you know that you have the number one spot this year. And it's like, I'm
That is
so
so amazing.
blessed. I'm
Right?
so blessed.
When you started writing books, when you started doing the coaching, did you ever see yourself in this position? Was that part of your like own training on yourself?
You know what? As far as I could get with my vision was that I wanted to impact millions of people's lives with
Yeah.
my life works.
Right.
Excuse me. That's as far as I didn't know how. We talked about that, the how. I didn't know how or anything else in the avenues. I didn't know back then when I developed that vision that the SMT method, I didn't realize it was being created in my walk. And
Okay.
it's not something I could have done alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And that's just part of being open too, like not having to control all the pieces, being open enough to receive the
Yes.
inspire guidance and kind of just trust it, knowing that whatever's coming to you is going to lead you to the thing that you're kind of already asking for, even if you can't fully envision it yet, you know?
Yes. And yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the main things I look at when I meet people and talk to them who desire the change and things like that is, do they have a beginner mindset? Do they have an open mind?
Mm.
So many of us are conditioned to, I know. And I get on the phone with a lot of people and
That
they go,
sounds like
I
my
know, I know,
kids.
I know. And yeah, right. And we're conditioned to know the answer, right? We're conditioned to figure
Yeah.
it out and know it and everything else and stuff. So I have to look deeper into that. Like, the way I define a beginner mindset is, we all know a lot of things, teenagers know more than anybody, right? And then when they get in their 20s, they realize, like, oh,
Yes.
but we all know a lot of things. But a beginner mindset will say, what can I take from here and add to what I already know?
Right.
Because somebody that's in that I know state, I can't really do anything for because they know everything they're going to know. They can't grow and expand that. So I have to
Yeah.
look for people who want to add. And usually pain is the motivator to that
Mm.
open mind because pain will push us into change. Pain will
Okay.
push us. And then, like, even with how I said that about the unrealistic, a lot of people say it's unrealistic. Somebody who's locked into that is not somebody I can help
Sure. Yeah.
because their own visions are not realistic for them, or their true heartfelt visions are not desires, are not realistic for them. So they won't chase them.
Yeah.
Pain will push us into opening up a little bit.
Right. And then all of a sudden you start seeing things from different perspectives and you're like, why was I so stuck there? That's so weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you've got a second book called Life's Lessons, and in it
Yeah.
you discuss learning from your life's lessons without judgment or anything along those lines. Is there a way that authors can apply this kind of mindset to their publishing process, especially when they're dealing with things like criticism or rejection when it comes to, or even like lackluster launches? Like, how do they get over some of the life lessons from that sort of
Yeah,
situation?
and Life's Lessons was my first book, and it actually came out after my mom passed away. I think it was part of my healing to write it and stuff like that, and it was a process of my life where, like, I was so tired of life happening to me. I
Mm,
was so tired of being the victim of all this negative, bad stuff and everything else and stuff like that. So I was like, man, I don't want to live like this. Pain.
yeah,
I don't want to
yeah,
live like this anymore. And so what I did is I started looking into things and everything, and I came across it. Now you hear it all the time, but I didn't hear it back then. I had to shift that to life is happening for me and not to me,
mm, yeah,
which means there's a purpose and a reason. So then I took that and I started going forward with it, and I couldn't get too far because it was like, well, this is bad. This is, like, this isn't good. Somebody stole from me. That's not good. How can I, And so what I had to do is I had to learn, I had to remove judgment completely. There is
mm,
no good or bad. There's no right or wrong, fair, or unfair, none of that stuff. If life happens for me and there's no judgment on what's happening, what is it trying to teach me? And the
Right.
moment I did that, it opened up a doorway for me to understand things that happened way in the past and that I was experiencing then. And I could understand what it was teaching me. So it's really done in a way as actual events happening in my life and what the lesson that I learned from those. And I go through it and talk about like the, the judgments and things like that of those events and stuff like that. But like what I ended up learning from that. And today I still get to live like that. Today I still get to live and life happens for me and not to me. And I get to understand how life is, what it's teaching me,
Yeah,
my
I think
life's
that's so
lessons.
powerful. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many people I've interviewed a number of people who have just really had a struggling childhood or a struggling like beginning part of their life. And if they hadn't have gone through that, if they hadn't have experienced those things, they wouldn't be the person they are now. They wouldn't have the career they have, the kids, the family, the mindset that they have now, all the things. And so when you look at it, like you just said, without the lens of like things only mean what you tell them they mean or tell yourself that they mean. So when
Yeah.
you say that it's, it's all working out for me, this is all here to give me experiences that are going to lead me ultimately to the thing I really want, then you're again going back to alignment, you're going into the
Yeah.
alignment flow of wherever life is trying to push you along. You're on that river going to
Yes.
where you're supposed to go instead of turning
Yes,
around.
and it's more of a flow, right? And going back, to directly answer your question about authors who get negative, reviews or things like that and stuff. It's if life's happening for me and not to me, and I take the judgment out of things, the negative reviews, criticisms, things like that, I can understand like what I can use from that. And then what part of it is that other person's opinion that really has nothing at all to do with me? It's where they are and where they're coming from.
Right.
And when I can do that, I get more lessons because there could be some things in what they're saying that could really help me.
Right. Well, I think sometimes too, there are authors, especially because authors are such deep thinkers. I think sometimes there are certain authors who are ahead of the times. And so when people aren't understanding or connecting, it's almost like they think that they're doing something wrong, but it's just that the majority of the population hasn't caught up to them yet. Like they're not there yet.
It's like being in that math class, right?
Right.
And you having a way to calculate it in your head that works quicker and gets it's exactly that.
Right.
But our culture will tell us there must be something wrong with me because everybody else isn't like this. And our culture will tell us if you're not following the robotic conditioning that you're supposed to follow, then there's something wrong with you. You're an outcast.
Right.
When really, that's the people that need to come forward with that and open up and be a gateway for other people to bring their uniqueness out.
Yeah. Yeah. I so agree with that. I so agree.
Yeah.
And you also talk about fears, right? You emphasize getting on the other side of fears. And I had a conversation with one of my author friends about fears basically being the same thing as like exhilaration and joy if you actually kind of look past some of those fears. So, how do you believe fear impacts people's ability to create or step into what they can truly receive?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, fear and excitement are very close. You know what differs between them?
Action.
Breath.
Fair?
When we get fearful, we go, we
Yeah.
hold, we restrict. When we're
Okay.
excited, whoo, we exhaust it.
Yeah.
That's really the difference. So one of the things I'll do with people, because we all face our, if we're going to experience anything, if we're going to have a vision and not know how the heck to get there, there's going to be fear involved. The
Right.
first time I went off a 2,000-foot mountaintop with a strap to a hang glider, there was fear.
Yeah, I bet.
And what one of the ways that we overcome it is that desire for what's beyond the fear and getting into that place will minimize, but there will always be some level of fear. I remember the first time I was asked to talk in front of, must have been 350, 500 people. And they said, come up by the stage and stand there when you hear it start introducing and then come up there, and I was stand there. And I swear, if they'd have gave me another 3 seconds, I'd have booked because I knew the closest door where it was at. I counted the steps, and as I stepped up, there were 2 steps and then the stage. And I took a first step up the first one, and it was just like hand gliding the first step. I could feel my heart just move, and
Right.
then I took up the next step, or the same thing with the second step of hang gliding. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat.
Yeah.
And then when my foot touched the stage, or in hang gliding, when my feet left the ground, the fear was gone.
Mm.
and the experience of a lifetime began.
Right? Right?
And it's like that. And that's what it is. Our fear is so wide we can't get around it, but we spend our whole life trying to. It's so tall, we'll never get above it. But most time our fear is going to be paper thin and it's going to feel the strongest right when we're at that edge of our greatness.
Right?
So learning to manage fear is necessary in order to achieve what we want to achieve. But we can have fear, but kick it the heck out of the driver's seat of our life. Because so many people will, when they get in that conditioning, the fear base of what other things that happen, and something will be fearful. And it's like, nope. And they'll stop. And people will not even take a single action into their biggest desires because of the fear. And
Right.
when you look at it, and we talked about entrepreneurs versus corporate and things like that. So when you look at it, true entrepreneurship is about that flow. It's about that creation. It's about not knowing that how, which means we're taking the actions as they're showing up and we're taking those actions and we're just adjusting, kind of like that river in a kayak, and going with the flow and we go around the river. But just like that, you're going down the river and all of a sudden you hear the loud water and everything else. It sounds like you think it's Niagara Falls by the sound of it, right? And you get up
Yeah.
around there and there's rocks off to the far corner, where some people will pull off and get off and be done there because of their fear, where you go around it and you realize it's just some rock buildup on the far side that you're not even going by, and that's how fear is. But we have to learn to manage that to achieve unrealistic results and achieve those greatest desires that we have in our heart.
Right. Well, and I think that's so true because there's so many ways that authors will keep themselves stuck. Well, people in general keep themselves stuck because of those fears. And yet if we just kind of tiptoed into it, sometimes you realize it's just amazing on the other side of that. So I agree. Okay, let's talk real quick before we end this though about exploring, like what are you exploring right now? Are you learning any new techniques? Are you working on any new books? I think you mentioned that you are working on a new book. So where are you at right now when it comes to all the things that you're learning in?
One of the other areas, other than the servant's heart of getting to help people, is I love being a student. As long as I've been doing this over 3 decades and stuff, and as much as I've learned and experienced this, I love that being in that place of continuing to grow and learn. And so, yeah, I'm always looking into things, whether it's different books and stuff like that. One of the things I'm looking into right now is I've never launched an institute to certify coaches. Like
Right.
I've been through them, but I've never launched my own. And now it's like a whole new learning process, a whole new vision, a whole new excitement level going through that. And there's some fear attached in that too. So that's one of the really big things I'm doing right now is getting that organized so we can launch that. And I expect it's probably going to launch sometime this year or early next year that will
Right.
launch the incident. And yeah, and I'm always developing additional add-ons for the programs or things like that. So, I have the exact programs that are under it, but I've created a self-study and I continue to expand within those programs as I learn more.
That is so good. So what is the book called though that you're working on as well? Like you're in the
The
process of creating?
SMT method. Yeah, that's the one I'm
Okay,
working on right now, the SMT method. And yeah,
that's great.
and people have been telling me, man, you can go to a ghostwriter and do it and stuff like that. But I just feel like it's supposed to be for me,
I would think so. Yeah,
to
that
be
would make
genuine,
sense. Yeah.
So I know AI does all this incredible stuff now and everything, but I feel it should be my words, the way I talk, the way I've learned, the examples, everything else should come from
Oh yeah,
where it was, who it was created through.
absolutely. Do you know when it's going to be
So
coming out?
no, because so that's one of the areas where I can kind of procrastinate on and stuff, if I
Sure.
don't have a clear. And then sometimes what I'm learning to do though in a good way is instead of procrastinating and wasting time in procrastinating and all that leads to, is I just go, this isn't the moment for me to do this.
Right.
And I'll lean into what feels good. And when I do that, usually once a week at least, I'll be like, I want to write some more of that, the table of contents and stuff like that. I want to make sure I capture this. I want to make sure so I'll just take some notes on the different, areas and stuff like that. And knowing it'll all come together.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful idea that a lot of authors need to realize because when you're so many of us get into this burnout phase where you're doing all the things and you've been working on it for a while and you fall out of love with the experience of writing. And then they keep trying to
Yes.
push through it. And you're like, but do you need to though? Like,
Right. Business owners, the same way, but authors, medical industry, I worked a lot with medical facilities and things like that after COVID and while COVID was going on. So as far as these same types of things and stuff like that is, yeah, we exhaust the fun out of doing what we're doing and our passion for doing it. And some
yeah,
people will literally leave and not do it anymore. And then it has a negative, kind of say a negative thought for them about it and everything else. When
yep,
they're really passionate about doing it, they just exhausted themselves
yep.
and, you know, took away the passion from it. You know what I mean? Like diminished the passion in it and stuff.
Yeah. And so just trusting that the right timing will come about is it's so key. It's really about just so many of us need to realize it and listen to that message. Like let go and just trust that you're on the right timing. Life is working out for you, right? The experiences are working out for you.
If it doesn't feel good to do right now, find out what does feel good and do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So good. Okay, so Joey, where can everybody go in my audience go to find out more about you, about your books, about your programs, the Institute? Where do they go?
I assume you'll have my website on there because it's kind of
Yep.
a long one. So anybody can schedule a call with me, a 15-minute call at coachwithjoey.com. And I love having these conversations. I love helping if I can help somebody and lean into them and stuff. I love doing that's my life. And so coachwithjoey.com, they can find a day and a time that works for them. That's my personal calendar. They're scheduling it with me and we'll have a conversation.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise, your insights. It was a great conversation. I know my audience is going to love it. So thank you.
Oh, this was awesome, Chris, just to get to talk with you and share these things.
Same. Same. Well, there you have it, guys. Isn't Joey great? We had such a great conversation before the podcast episode even started airing. And I knew that this conversation was going to go swimmingly. There was a connection there between the two of us, and we just have an understanding. And then obviously finding out that he got called into the hot seat at one of Abraham Hicks's events. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. I love that so much. I cannot wait. That's definitely something that's on my bucket list of things that Carissa Andrews will be doing at some point. I'm going to go to an Abraham Hicks cruise or a gathering and get in the hot seat because that just sounds like so much fun. But anyway, the thing that with this podcast episode that really stuck with me was the concept of not allowing ourselves to slow down, not allowing ourselves to really tap into our intuition and what our heart is trying to tell us. And over the past couple of weeks, actually past couple of months, I'll take that back. Since probably about the end of May, and now it's currently the end of July, there was like a complete shift that was happening in my world, in my like mindset, in the way things were working. And it felt like a tower moment. It felt like everything was falling apart to the point where I don't know that I want to do this anymore. Like literally, I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue Author Revolution. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue writing. And I'm not saying this because I think it doesn't work. I'm saying this because there was just genuinely a modality or a mindset or a methodology that I was using in my own business, in my own life, that just put me into a state of incoherence. We'll call it that because I've been really doing a lot of inner work with Joe Dispenza. The incoherence in the way that I've been working through things is so similar to what Joey was talking about in this podcast episode, where, you're trying to effort and you're trying to do all the things and you're trying to just push through and make things happen, and then nothing happens. And that mentality was something that I didn't realize I was even fully doing. I mean, I was aware, but I wasn't aware. It's so weird how like we can teach this stuff to other people, but in our own lives, sometimes we get almost blinded by the way that we're operating. And so what happened was like I started questioning like I wanted things to shift in a positive way. I wanted things to become, better and elevated. I want to see growth. Obviously, you might see the trends in some of these podcast episodes because growth is a big thing. I'm trying to wrap my head around growth. I'm trying to understand what makes really successful entrepreneurs tick. I'm trying to get my mindset around, all of these things. And what was really interesting was everything fell apart. Like people were not interested in some of the courses that I was doing, or the course sales, I should say. They weren't interested in, some of the coaching things or the master classes that I've been doing. And I'm really interested in these things. I'm really passionate about all of it. But it was just kind of putting me in a funk and I didn't know why. And so my go-to is to sit down and think, okay, why is this happening? What am I doing or what should I be changing? Because I know when stuff like this happens, you can't take your old mentalities with you when you are growing. And so there's a level of when shit's falling apart, a new version of you is trying to be born. And if you can hold on to that mentality, if you can trust that, okay, things are falling apart, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It means something new is trying to be born. Now all of a sudden you have space to allow in what's trying to come in versus trying to put up the resistance against it, right? We're not trying to fight against what's coming through. We're just trying to understand and allow what needs to be released to be released. At least that's the way that I take a look at things when things like this happen. It doesn't mean it happens instantly, because there were definitely some days where I was like, what the hell is going on? But 2 months later, I can look back now and go, okay, I'm seeing the pattern. I'm seeing what's happening. I'm seeing what was being shed. I'm seeing what was being released. I'm seeing what was being let go of. Again, going back to let go. Interesting, right? And all of a sudden, it's like things are starting to come together at this point. So 2 months later, after things started kind of limping along and then dropping off completely, I was like, okay, what needs to change here? What do I have to do? And so I started getting still. I mean, I was already getting still with meditations, but I started getting even more still. I started dropping some of the extra things that I was doing. I finished up Midlife Wolf Bond, and I haven't really done a whole lot other than working on audiobooks. And that's just been, kind of a slow, steady thing. And I've been reassessing what it is I really want. Like, do I really want to be this person? Do I really want to teach? Do I really want to be this creative entrepreneur? Do I want to just write? What is it I want? And why am I not allowing myself to have it? And what I found is that it has nothing to do, or at least so far, what I found is it has nothing to do with the fact that I can't have it. It has nothing to do with the fact that I don't want it. It actually has to do with the fact that I haven't been in alignment with my energetics the way I thought I had. And let me explain. One of the things that I've been really studying up on lately is heart coherence. Joe Dispenza talks about this, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, about how when our nervous system is out of alignment, then all of a sudden we are not drawing from the field, the quantum field, and we are not pulling to us in a magnetic way from our heart center. So our heart is our magnet, and our thoughts are the electro part of electromagnetic. We have an electromagnetic field. And when we're not operating from our heart center, or we're not tapping into it, now all of a sudden you become like an inert magnet. You're just a piece of metal. And so I've been actively working on opening the heart center, on flowing energy through again, on focusing literally on becoming an energetic alignment just to joy, just to gratitude, just to support. I'm supported. I have ease. Like, I'm not looking at my goals. I'm not looking at growth. I'm not looking at a monetary number. And I was guided to this app. It's actually from the Heart Math Institute. I've known about the Heart Math Institute for a long time. It's called Heart Math is the app. And I'll put it in the show notes today too, so that you can take a look at it if you're so inclined. But what was really interesting is that I have been keeping track of my heart rate variability when I'm meditating or when I am taking a manifestation break. So I do that like almost on the hour. I just take a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, just to tap in, tune in, get myself back into alignment. And what I was finding using that app was that, like, during meditations, my brain is too active to allow my heart center, my literal HRV, my heart variability rate, to come into coherence. And what that means is my heart was not beating in a rhythm that is producing the electromagnetic quality that we're looking for when we're manifesting. I'm like, oh wow, this is super fascinating. So here I thought during my meditations, I'm putting myself into this elevated state. And while theta, getting your brain into theta is a component of it, having your heart in alignment with it is also the secondary part, right? So it's the magnetic part. So instead, what I've been doing is focusing on opening my heart center, opening my coherence, feeling into what it feels like when I'm in coherence, not incoherent, but in coherence. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I have not been feeling this for a while. I'm seeing now why things have been shifting, why things have been going interestingly in a different direction. And so all of a sudden I'm coming back in, I'm tapping back in, and I'm doing it in a deliberate way. I'm not doing as long of a meditations unless I feel so guided. I'm just doing the quick, like 2 to 10 minutes, and I'm focusing with this app on getting into that flow state, into that ease, into that grace, into that gratitude, into that love, to feel into the flows of all of it. And it brings me back to what Joy was saying about, doing something fun, doing something that you enjoy, drop the struggle and just have fun with something. And in doing so, you're going to put yourself in a receiving state. But it also ties back to Abraham Hicks, because they talk about, when you stop doing that thing that you always do, meaning pushing the bobber down, if you let it go and just stop thinking about it, stop, drop the stick and focus on a different stick altogether, one that brings you joy, your elevated energy, your vibration goes up. And when your energy goes up, all the other things get to come into you. Okay. And so this is why that's working. This is why the energy state of this is so important. Why, when you're doing your author career, if you're feeling like you're efforting, or you're feeling like I'm doing all the things, but it's not working, it's time to back off the gas pedal. It's time to just drop it for a little bit. And I'm not meaning drop it forever. I'm meaning like just take a step back, take a breather, go do something fun that you've been putting off for a while. Take a minute or two to get away from your computer, go outside, ground to the earth, like literally take your socks, shoes off and stand on the earth and breathe deeply for 2 to 3 minutes and just focus on your heart center, letting the energy flow in and out of your heart, and just see what happens. See what starts to shift in your life. And now I'm at a place right now, I've been doing this probably for about a week, where I've just been focusing on the heart center stuff and getting into heart coherence. Loving the app because it's giving me real-time data to work with. Of course, double Virgo here, gotta love the data. And it's just been really cool. And so for me, it's putting new things into perspective as I get ready to start writing Write Your Reality. It's putting things into a different perspective as I'm thinking about the conversation I'm going to be having when I go to Author Nation Vegas in November, because I'm going to be having a conversation about manifestation and how it works. It's putting things into different alignment for myself in a way that I have not thought of before. And there's going to be plenty of things that are coming out because of this, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that there is something to what Joey is saying. There is so much that we are doing. We're focusing on all the hats, all the things that we have to do, all the ways that we have to do it. But when we can drop all of that and just trust that the actions that are going to bring the thing to us that we've been desiring with ease and with grace and with flow, now all of a sudden we have so much more fun, so much more time for fun. And it brings in this new lightness, this new energy of just joy into the things that we're doing. And so while I didn't overly enjoy having everything kind of go topsy-turvy there for a while, it's put things into perspective for me, because it's allowing me to reshape the direction of Author Revolution, of how I'm going to publish, of how I'm going to teach you to publish, of how I want you to focus on your life and your support systems and the way that things get to work for you. There's a lot of cool stuff coming, and I'm not quite sure what it all looks like yet, but I wanted to share that information with you, because this podcast episode really was kind of like a reminder to me of how far I've come, and also where I started before everything fell apart. This podcast episode was actually recorded before things started getting a little wobbly in my energy and in my businesses and all the things. And so it reminded me, in getting this whole thing down, that I knew that this was important. I knew that taking the time away was important. I knew taking a step back was the action I needed to take. It was guided to me through, this conversation and others, where when the shit hit the fan, I knew the actions I needed to take without really putting a lot of judgment on myself. Even though there were days where I'm like, okay, I'm taking all this time off. I'm taking all the steps back. Am I just being lazy? Am I just procrastinating doing the work? Or is this actively helping me? 2 months later, I can say it was actively helping me. But in the middle of it, in the throes of it, there was definitely questionable moments, right? So I just want you to think about this. I want you to, put yourself into, where are you at right now? What can you let go of? What can you start to trust a little bit more? Can you take more time to do the things that are putting you into a happy, heart coherent state? Can you work on your heart coherence? Can you feel into what love and joy and gratitude actually feel like? Because there was a while there I couldn't even tap into it. I didn't know what that felt like anymore because it was like I was so incoherent. I was so like out of place, out of whack, out of whatever. So it's joyful. It's really relieving to feel that again, to feel like, okay, this is starting to come back. This is starting to work all over again. I'm starting to feel into what I needed to be feeling and what I want to be feeling and all the things. So there you go. There's been a quick update on everything that's been going on the couple of months. I mean, that's not everything. There's a lot of other things. In fact, next week, get ready for it. I am interviewing and talking with Jen Sincero. So, I can't wait to tell you about that one. I'm sure I've discussed it. I've dropped little hints here and there. And next week, August 7th, on her birthday, no less, we are going to have the absolutely epic conversation that I had with Jen Sincero. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about Joey, if you want to learn more about his SMT method, if you want to get information about that HeartMath app, head over to authorrevolution.org/246, and all of the information will be there and available for you. And remember, let me know if this podcast episode is showing up at all the places that you would normally listen to it, or if you had to hunt it down, because I would want to know that. And just let me know, do you like this podcast? Leave a podcast review if you do, because I, of course, love to see those podcast reviews. I like to know that I'm doing a good job and tapping into the information and the guidance that you're looking for. Of course, if you ever have conversations or content that you would like for me to discuss, you can always reach out. Just email me again, carissa@authorrevolution.org. I'd be more than happy to take a look at the content ideas that you have because I want to be able to tap in and help you, right? That's why I'm doing this. That's why I've always been out here doing the work, doing a podcast episode. It's for you. All right, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy all of the sunshine that's happening right now. If it is sunny where you are, it is where I am anyway. Super hot in Minnesota at the moment, like 90 degrees. It's crazy. But enjoy it and have a wonderful time. Okay? Go forth and start your author revolution.